how do you think about government spending and a lot of these technologies, which, there's a public aspect of like, there could be like auditing, I guess, by the public, but also just like an efficiency gain.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be nice if you could push a button and have thousands of payments sent at once? I'm so excited about what we're focused on in terms of government efficiency. We just recently saw the other day that the president talked about USAID maybe moving under the State Department, focusing on like really getting foreign aid out and using blockchain to do it. Well, I mean, we've been doing that already for the last 3 years. And so we would love to be able to use the technology for that. I mean, if you get down to it, like think about like taxes and like the payment of taxes. How simple is that? It's really exciting to me to see the future of that.
What's going on, guys? We've got a great episode for you today with Denelle Dixon. She is the CEO and Executive Director of the Stellar Development Foundation. In this conversation, we get into the dirty details of what's happening around the world with this technology. How are people in emerging markets actually using stablecoins and payment rails? On top of that, what's going on Wall Street? They're going all in on this technology. And why are they taking so many of the different products and services and trying to bring it on chain? Denelle is a wealth of information, and she's got tons of insights you won't hear anywhere else. And so I hope that you guys enjoy this conversation. Here's my latest with Denelle Dixon. All right, I thought a great place to start this conversation is Wall Street's going all in. They have now realized that there may be better technology that's out there in order for them to be able to do transactions, offer products to their clients. And I think a huge part of Wall Street's interest is like, there are users here, there's potentially new revenue sources for them, there's efficiency gains, like all these things that we know. I want to talk to you about what are they actually doing, right? And I think that you interface with these organizations on a day-to-day basis, you're talking to them, you're listening to them, you understand what the products are that they're launching. How do you summarize like what has been happening on Wall Street on chain in the last year or so?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's been wonderful to have Wall Street be a participant on this. And really, they sort of started to go in like 2 years ago, and now they're all in. Everyone wants to they want to tokenize everything. So tokenization, it's the key word in the United States and also Western Europe. We spend a bunch of time talking with asset managers who are like, how can we tokenize this? What can we do with it? Some of them are on the slower side. Some of them have done it. We've already seen money market funds on Stellar. Franklin Templeton built the first money market fund on any chain, and they started the process in 2019, if you can believe it. So it took them that long to get the SEC to approve it. They now have Benji, which is their the asset. They have it live not just in the US but also outside the US.
And what are they trying to get?
They're trying to doing
this.
So from their standpoint, they've actually been very focused on internal efficiencies.
Okay.
Remember, beforehand, they had lots of databases that they had to like connect and make sure everything was done right. And they had a lot of people who had to spend time doing that. They now have a single source of truth, which is the Stellar network for all of that is their books and records. So internal efficiency has been amazing. But the other thing that they're trying to get, which is what I love, is the fact that they can now offer this because of the internal efficiencies. They can now offer entry into their money market funds at a far lower entry price. So it used to be $2,500 to get into their funds. If you use the on-chain one, $25. That's huge. So it does open it up to additional retail investors that they hadn't been able to grab before. So the internal efficiency has saved them a significant sum of money from settlement times, and also the settlement cost is really
so like on this, right? The way I describe it is like, as ridiculous as this sounds, but like the banks really weren't able to take money from their right pocket and put it in their left pocket efficiently is basically this kind of internal efficiency stuff. And that's why sometimes if you wired from one account to another, there was like a 2-day settlement or a 1-day settlement, across borders, nightmare. Like there's all these issues. And really what you're saying here is by having this like public blockchain that they now can operate against, you take that infrastructure and completely change the way that they're able to move money for themselves.
Well, yeah. And I think if you also, they had to, Franklin Templeton, just using them as an example, and Jenny and others have talked really openly about this. They had to have training wheels essentially when the SEC allowed them to do this. So they had the Stellar network that they were running against, and then they also had their own internal databases. And the SEC eventually looked at it and was like, well, actually, there are more decimal points on the Stellar network. It's more accurate and way more efficient because it didn't have so many different databases. So yes, the internal efficiency makes it so that it's one spot for them to look, and they actually don't have to manage and run that. And it's immutable, can never be changed. Like these are all really, really great things from them. There's also all of the functionality built into Stellar for them that was already there when they started, which is the clawback functionality, the ability to make it auth required so that they can control the asset in a way that I can't send it to you unless you're already KYC'd. We like it when they're open assets, but the truth is when you're dealing with securities, it makes sense, right? So they already had all those tools built in, things they had to build in separately in their other databases. So this is actually, it just made it so much more efficient for them.
And when they're doing this, they're trying to increase or shorten the amount of time it takes to do these transactions. They're trying to drop the cost. Are they also interfacing with other banks? Like, it's one thing to move money from my right pocket to my left pocket, but some of my customers obviously want to interface. They want to move it from one account. I want to pay somebody. They're at a different bank or a different financial institution. Like, are these organizations now coming together and saying like, well, what if we like team up together and create like use public infrastructure, but create like a trusted network or something?
We're not quite there yet, but okay. I think so. I mean, I think eventually moving in that direction, but I think it just getting these assets on chain was a step change for them. I think with the new US policy around this and more focus and attention to blockchain and the ease of use of it, we're going to see more of them coming on chain. They're already talking, a lot of them talk to us about collateralization. How do you use these assets now for collateralization? How do you think about what we can do with respect to not just putting bonds on chain, but then how you can use those bonds after? So it's a really interesting conversation, which sort of allows them the freedom to think differently about the products they're offering their users, whether that be their business side clients or their retail clients. So it's really getting fun at this point. And then of course, like they all want smart contracts to be in play, but they don't really know how they can leverage smart contracts yet, but they want to, and they want to think about how they can do that. I mean, if you think about the money market funds and the way that we use money market funds when we write our checks from money market funds or whatnot, you're kind of not allowed to do that yet with these assets. Although Franklin Templeton is allowing people to move an asset from out of their wallet to other people's wallets, so long as that other people are KYC'd. But eventually think of the world when you can actually just go and pay for your coffee with your money market funds. That's a pretty cool world to be in. That comes in a little bit of competition with stablecoins and domestically what stablecoins can be used for. But I think that like these are the things that you historically couldn't do with the ease of use that you now can with blockchain. I've heard Jenny Johnson, who is the CEO of Franklin Templeton. I've heard her talk about how you need to do instant interest. So you can't just like wait to settle once a day. They want to be able to say, you've been in it for 3 minutes, you get your interest for 3 minutes. That is what the technology allows, but we're not quite there yet from the regulatory standpoint. So it'll take time to get there, but those are the things that we want to see happen.
Now, are these assets bearer assets and like customers are holding them, or is the financial institution holding them? And how do you think about like some of the security stuff, or what have they been talking about? You know, it's one thing if you say like, hey, I have, let's say an older client, they've got stocks, it sits there, they have an interface, great. It's a whole different game if you're like, by the way, if you click on the wrong link in your email, your assets may go away, right? I think that banks get kind of nervous about that, or no? Yeah,
for sure. I think they still do. I mean, you can use the asset and you can send it to non-custodial wallets. But like at this point, like these assets are maybe they want to move towards that. I'm not officially sure that they've actually moved in that direction, but like eventually that's where they want to go.
And you fully tap into like the value of the technology and have that available to people. But right now you kind of walk before you run. Well,
right now you're in the Benji app and you can hold it all in the Benji app, but it's still yours, right? It's like in your hands. So it's an interesting play to see how like from the securities law standpoint, how they've been able to do that.
So you mentioned stablecoins, and that's another huge area where people are bringing this stuff on chain. I kind of think of it as like Bitcoin was product fit number one, right? With global store of value. Yep. Now you have these stablecoins, which far and away have product market fit, whether they're number 2 or number 3, who cares? Right. But people want to use that for medium of exchange. The money market funds are like yield. Technically they're stable, right? And are they competing with the stable coins? Are they, just this all merged together?
No, they're not merged together. And it's an interesting question. I don't know if you saw yesterday the markup where they had on the Stablecoin Act, but there was a question about whether or not they were going to allow stable coins to be to be able to share that interest with the retail or the business side.
And what was
they said they're not going to include that in the current.
That's crazy.
But is it? Like, this is a question I don't know.
Let's talk about it.
Is it crazy?
Let me put my notes down here.
Because if you think about so the technology allows all of this to happen. Like the technology allows it. But if you think about like what money market funds are, they are a security that is an asset that is out there that has been regulated for hundreds of years. And they know like from the retail side, they have all these ways that they have to provide notifications to the users and give them the opportunity to understand what these are and what the risks might be. And if you have stable coins and you're providing those assets, the assets that are backing the stable coins are sitting in money market funds, but then you're providing yield somehow you're sharing the interest with your consumers. Do they have the understanding of that? It's an interesting question. Like if you think about a stablecoin, and you say, okay, we get a 4.5% yield on the money market fund. So me as the stablecoin issuer, I'm just going to share 2% with you, and I'm going to guarantee that 2% to you. is that a security?
But my whole thing is, I think twofold. One, why does it matter if it is sitting in U.S. Treasuries, right? Because you should want to not take the paternalistic view of, hey, let's protect everyone from themselves, and instead say, someone's going to generate yield here. So the stablecoin issuers,
Why can't it be shared?
they are going to go put it into treasuries anyways, and they get all of it. So you should actually want to help the people.
Oh man, I'm right there with you. Like, I think that there's this like, certainly the tech allows it. And this is exactly the kind of thing that makes a world of difference. We have a wallet that's built on Stellar where they've been really focusing on Argentina. What does it matter to them in Argentina? They want to hold US dollars. Why do they want to hold US dollars? The inflation and deflation in their asset just up and down in their local currency. When they have the ability to have yield on it, it's even way more interesting to them because now they're not just hedging against inflation. They're also able to grow their wealth, which is a huge thing. So I would love to see this. But I just think we need to understand that it butts up against all of these issues on the security side and the banking side that they've been doing for, 70 years. So should it be put in a stablecoin bill, which is actually allowing like just stablecoins to exist? I think that there's an opportunity to address this issue. Should it be in this bill or should it be something that comes after as we get the technology out there more and more? We've got the stablecoin through. We now know we can have stablecoins. We now know they're not securities. So yeah, I agree with you. It should be there. They should be, users should be able to get value from these assets that they're holding. But I think that that's just a second order issue.
And then Brian Moynihan, I think, is the Bank of America CEO. He came out and he basically said, we're not allowed to do this, but when we are, we're getting in the game. That was his like TLDR, right? Is that they want to issue a stable coin. JP Morgan used to have JPM coin. It feels like the banks are going to just all be in the stablecoin game. And some of it will be for like internal efficiency stuff. But if I remember correctly, JP Morgan wanted their customers to use it back, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I used to always be very worried about the fact that if they come out and they say, okay, we have this stablecoin, it's backed by dollars, everyone adopts it. In the future, could they just unpeg it? Like, could they basically just like, well, the government did it, right? Like, okay, no more dollars. Now everyone just uses JPM coin and they essentially back into having like a central bank.
Well, technically, if it's a stable coin issued under the Stablecoin Act, no.
So then they would have to keep it.
You would have to have the one-to-one backing, at least the way the act is currently written. But then banks have always been sort of treated separately. So, I mean, I don't think the banks are like super happy about the current language, although I think they're happier with it than they were before.
Yeah. Well, do we know what their big concerns are?
I don't know what their big concerns are. I mean,
kind of like, if the crypto people are involved, then maybe we just don't like it.
That is a concern in and of itself. But I think it's an interesting question. I was just going through this yesterday with someone about whether every bank should issue their own stablecoin and what is that going to do? Like, is that the right sort of methodology for us to think through? I mean, look, when you have like those, if you're talking about like the JP coin or the JPM coin, whatever it was, it doesn't transfer outside of their network, like officially outside of their network. So does that mean that it's actually a stable coin or is it something else that you're, and does that actually harm the use of stable coins? I mean, one of the most beautiful things about what blockchain and certainly like an open public network provides is the ability to transfer that value seamlessly. And if you start having these banks not only issue assets, but then issue them on private permission chains, it just sort of creates the exact same infrastructure we have today. It doesn't improve the technology. So the only thing I would say is if banks are going to get into this, wouldn't it be amazing if they got into it on public chains? And if they're going to issue stable coins, fine, great, but issue them publicly, allow them to move from one user to the other. Otherwise, you're going to get into the exact same world that you are today.
What about privacy of, do banks want all their transactions?
Well, that wasn't a big issue. I mean, back in the day, like, gosh, when I first started here at Stellar, we were working with IBM and IBM was actually building this technology to work with banks and allow banks to do all this transfer using Stellar. And part of the issue was no bank wanted any other bank to know how much volume they were sending on a daily basis.
Of course.
And so does it become an issue for them? I mean, there are ways to sort of obfuscate like the amounts, right? Like you can send amounts at different times and like you can bulk transactions so that you don't see all of it that comes through and when it's coming through. There are ways to sort of stem against that. But I think that that's like a really interesting competitive question, whether they would want all of their transactions to be on blockchain because it is immutable and it's open.
Yeah. Do you think that we will eventually see stocks as well? Like obviously there's a regulatory question, but those just get tokenized. They trade 24/7 on public chains. And then like,
I think so.
Is the New York Stock Exchange got a risk because there could be a decentralized like public equity chain?
I think that they end up, well, it's so interesting because this has already been, we've seen startups try to do this, and some of them have failed just because they were too before their time, where they've actually purchased stocks and then had them custodied and then actually issued fractionalized ownership in those stocks out to the retail side. We've seen that happen time and time again. Some of them have made it through, and we'll see how that works. Some of them came in like 4 years ago doing this, which that was probably too early for it. So there's already sort of that play where you can do that. As long as you have a true custodian and you can prove that it's one-to-one backed, you can issue that same asset and you can buy then a fractionalized ownership of a share of Apple, wherever you are in the world, in South Africa, for example. Whether or not that's going to create competition for the New York Stock Exchange, I mean, the truth is maybe they'll just jump in on it and they'll issue their whole exchange on a public chain. And that would be super interesting. I think that you're always going to have those filing requirements with respect to, like, you're going to have to be on an exchange somewhere to make it so that it's, I mean, I just think upending that whole environment and that whole structure would be complicated.
Yeah. Well, or do you just start it from scratch? Like, one of the things I keep thinking about is there used to be 8,000 publicly traded companies. Now we're down to about 4,000. And so you have that 50% reduction, but you have this explosion of liquid public assets in crypto. They're not stocks according to the regulators, but it sure feels like, you can allocate capital to them. There's, things that make them go up and down in price. Like, do we actually just say, hey, this one type of public market, which is the stock market, it's too onerous, it's too expensive, there's a lot of issues, it doesn't trade 24/7. Companies feel like it's not worth doing because they have access to capital in the private market. But then they built a parallel new public market to a degree, and there's been an explosion. And so same thing with stocks is like somebody just come along and say, hey, we're just going to parallel build something completely different.
It could be, but it's also like the fundamentals, even if you don't agree with them, we haven't seen the fundamentals yet come into the crypto markets in terms of understanding how they move. Other than like today and last night, you saw all red on the crypto side. That was because of what happened in the traditional market. So I think that's the only fundamental that we actually know today that actually moves the market in the crypto side. And it's supposed to be different on the stock side, so that you're supposed to actually have fundamentals in business and that you want to disclose those things. You want people to understand what they're buying. It's very different when you get to like that security side and that security law than when you're actually on the commodity side, which is where the crypto assets sit today. So understanding the fundamentals on the security side, I think, is why we have all that regulatory structure. Could you upend it? For sure. That would take a bit, given how long it's taken us to get a freaking stablecoin law through. And we're not going to probably see it until later this year, maybe in July, right before the recess. And we've been at this for probably like 2.5 years. It's kind of crazy.
It feels like it's a very bipartisan effort. Is that kind of your read as well? Is that both Republicans and Democrats seem to be coming together and saying like, all right, fine, let's get this done? Today's episode is brought to you by Bitcoin IRA. Are you a crypto investor with a retirement account, but don't have any crypto in your retirement account? Listen up, this is for you. Bitcoin IRA is revolutionizing the way Americans save for retirement by helping smart investors diversify their savings with access to over 75 cryptocurrencies. With world-class customer service, military-grade encryption, and a vertically integrated licensed trust company, it's no wonder more than 200,000 Americans trust Bitcoin IRA to secure their financial future. Get started. It is quick and easy. It takes just 3 minutes to open an account. Once you're set up, their team of IRA specialists will reach out to guide you through every step of the process. Whether you're transferring an IRA from a legacy bank, rolling over an old 401k, or starting fresh with a new contribution, the Bitcoin IRA team is here to help you get access to real crypto in your retirement account. And here is the best part. As a Pomp podcast listener, you can earn up to $1,000 in rewards when you add funds to your account before tax day. Search for Bitcoin IRA in the App Store or visit bitcoinira.com/pomp to join 200,000 Americans on their journey to upgrade their retirement. That's bitcoinira.com/pomp to upgrade your retirement today. Today's episode is brought to you by Polkadot. Polkadot offers secure, scalable, and decentralized blockchain technology that perfectly aligns with the needs of innovative projects. It was developed by Gavin Wood, one of the co-founders of Ethereum and the creator of Solidity. Polkadot aims to build an internet where users have full control over their data and their applications. Polkadot offers tons of unique features, a shared security model, along with the new auction model and significant implementations like ASIC banking. Given these characteristics, it's easy to understand why Polkadot is gaining more and more traction in the cryptocurrency world. Some people even are talking about it as the AWS of Web3. Now, companies such as Mythical Games, Astro Network, and over 50 other independent blockchains with hundreds of applications already leverage Polkadot's technology to power their platforms. If you're looking for a reliable, scalable, and cutting-edge solution, Polkadot seems to be the top choice for industry players. Go check them out today at polkadot.com. It feels like it's a very bipartisan effort. Is that kind of your read as well? Is that both Republicans and Democrats seem to be coming together and saying like, all right, fine, let's get this done?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was amazing. Even in the prior Congress with McHenry and Waters on the House side, they were they worked together to pull this bill out. And honestly, the challenges of not getting it through had mostly to do with politics, didn't have to do with the bipartisan nature of the bill. And I think French Hill and others who like Liccardo, a bunch of other folks have come in from the Democrat side, Richie Torres, to be able to support this. We saw, I think, 7 or 8 votes from the Democrats yesterday in support of it to get it out of markup. It's pretty great. Like I do feel like in this day and age, that's bipartisan. Historically, maybe bipartisan was a larger share of both sides, but I think it's good to see that, and we needed to see that.
Mm-hmm. And then in the stablecoin bill, I know that there's a lot of focus on U.S. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Tether and others are outside the U.S. I think there are different business strategies, right? Mm-hmm. Some people are saying, "Hey, let's go and let's offer this." In U.S. markets to U.S. users for what I'll call like U.S. use cases, emerging markets, completely different type of user, completely different use case. I know that you guys kind of play in both worlds, right? Where you've guys done stuff in various countries in Africa, et cetera. Looks very different than the U.S. market. Right. And so how do you think of the stablecoin landscape maybe? And does it feel like there's a line being drawn and people you have to pick? Are you in the U.S. or are you specifically focused outside the U.S.?
It's an interesting question. I mean, no, because even the stablecoin issuers that are actually in the U.S. are still really trying hard to grab those markets outside the U.S. Mm-hmm. I think that really this regulatory structure is trying to say, if you're using and backing, if you're using the U.S. dollar asset and you're backing it with U.S. U.S. Treasuries, we should have some kind of say over what your regulatory environment looks like here in the U.S. Right now the current bill has, I think, pulling those who are working outside the U.S. and are set outside the U.S., working them in the next 18 months or so. I'm sure that not everybody's thrilled with that. So we'll see what happens in that language in the Senate side. But I think that it's not as much of a demarcation between where you're focused. It's more of a demarcation about when do the U.S. regulators get to have a say? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And should they have a say? If you think about Tether, for example, they don't have operations for the most part in the U.S. and they haven't historically. And they've done exceptionally well outside the U.S. and that the high demand for that asset outside the U.S. We see it all the time in Africa, on the African continent, in South America, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. High demand.
And they're high demand for stablecoins or high demand, I want Tether? Oh,
no, high demand for Tether. They're just, Tether is in the market. They've been in the market for so long. They did a really great job about getting in the market there. USDC has actually done a nice job in the short term that they've been focused there, and they've been able to make some inroads in those markets. But I'll just be honest, you see mostly that Tether is in high demand. So I think that they haven't taken the strategy of focusing on the U.S. market, although folks in the U.S. hold Tether. And so I think that's where the regulators are wait, if you're holding an asset in the U.S. and you're also backing it with U.S. securities, U.S. Treasuries, maybe we should have some say over that. Yeah.
One of the things I heard from somebody, I think he lived in Nigeria, was he said that people on the ground are somewhat skeptical of USDC because they feel like it's the U.S. government coin.
Oh, interesting.
And
I haven't heard that actually.
I remember just thinking to myself, that is such a on the ground insight that I would have never expected, because in the US, regulation is a good thing. You know what I mean? People are oh, it's a regulated thing. It's safe. It's backed by, whatever. And his point was kind of hey, there's an inherent distrust
for sure
in some areas with the US. And
it's not just with the US, it's with any government, any government backing, there's inherent distrust. I haven't heard that. I've heard other things the concern, that there was some concern when I was on the continent last year that USDC had depegged, and I was that's not what happened. None of that actually happened. But there's this story that people are, because they're really looking for to hold US dollar backed assets. They want to make sure that they're safe and secure, because so much of the monetary policy in their countries don't allow that their currencies fluctuate so much. And so the US dollar is important to them. So I think that Circle's done a really nice job of eliminating that narrative over the last year and a half or so. Mm-hmm. And I think that's good. Like having competition
the user wins.
It's the most amazing thing, right? Yeah. Like, so you don't just want one asset. Sorry, everybody. Like, I don't want one asset, just like I don't think one chain should actually survive out of this. A multi-chain world is the right thing. A multi-asset world is the right thing. Mm-hmm. So I think that competition on the continents for for these assets is important. What we like to offer them is the stable US dollar-backed asset. And I think that's just a really important
Where do these people get their information from in the emerging markets? Are they on, X? Are they watching YouTube? Are they reading email newsletters?
Lots of like TikTok, right? Lots of.
And I'm so old. I don't even think of TikTok as like the first thing in my mind. I think all these other sources, and then I got to remember that thing exists.
There's but there's also a lot of it is like they're like internal networks that they're talking to. So many of them are using all the tools to have those conversations. And
it's like social media and like group chats.
Yeah, group chats. It's like and so they get tons of information, and the thing that I love about working in these markets and spending so much time with them is we learn every time because we think that we know what problems are out there to solve. And the truth is we have absolutely no idea. When you live in the West and you figure out like are the challenges, and we look and we say, oh, we can simplify this, this, and this. And those aren't the things that they need simplified. Mm-hmm. And so I love working with local builders because they help me to understand like the world in a completely different way. Mm-hmm. I think that's the reason why it's been so interesting to me on the stablecoin discussion and even on market structure and all these things that are so important to us here. Like stablecoin is a no-brainer, like complete no-brainer. It should have been actually pushed through. And had we not had like challenges on the banking side and challenges with the Fed versus the states, it's just a simple thing to do. But domestically, it's actually not as important as it is internationally. Like to go to like work with these builders and to understand what like getting access to a dollar-backed asset means to the retail side is like, it's just, it's game changing for them. Mm-hmm. And so for me, like that's the focus. It's like all these things that we spend so much time and so much energy on, like we could just get them right away and then move this technology and allow it to be used in the way that frankly, it's the best. Cross-border, it's the most amazing tool to be able to leverage. So now I feel like we're moving in the right direction with the policy here in the US. Frankly, policy outside the US has already been pretty strong. We still have a lot of work to do though. And a lot of times we're so focused on the West. We have a lot of work to do with like central banks and with governments in all of these countries that we just talked about. Mm-hmm. They're fearful because if you bring the dollar in, is it going to create dollar dominance for them and make it so that their currency fluctuates so tremendously? So part of it is like getting them comfortable with like, bring it in. They can then use the local, they can transfer it into local currency. Or frankly, it's not that different from them using Momo and all of these different like the assets the payment apps that they're using already. So DOGE has been really looking at government spending. I remember a bill in, I think it was 2020, one of the spending bills. They originally talked about like, oh, if we could just like press a button and get the checks, end up being physical checks, right? We could just get it in people's hands. And there was a mention of a digital dollar. It didn't make it past like the first or second iteration. It got taken out, mainly probably because we didn't have one at the time. Yeah. But at least it seems like they were thinking about that. How do you think about government spending and a lot of these technologies, which, there's a public aspect of like, there could be like auditing, I guess, by the public, but also just like an efficiency gain. Yeah. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if you could push a button and have thousands of payments sent at once? It actually is really nice. We see it happening all the time. The technology just allows for that to happen right now. And so I think that, on Stellar, we've built this bulk disbursement platform that you can use for payments. Like think about like companies who are already using it to pay gig workers globally. So they can like upload all of the transactions and push a button, and then it all goes through instantaneously to their accounts, to their wallets. This is being used all over. And so and also it's even being used if you don't actually have the receive side wallet yet, because you can just get a text message to say, hey, you have, we've paid you, and just download this wallet and you'll receive it. It's really simple. So I'm so excited about what we're focused on in terms of government efficiency. We just recently saw the other day that the president talked about USAID maybe moving under the State Department, focusing on like really getting foreign aid out and using blockchain to do it. Well, I mean, we've been doing that already for the last 3 years. And so we would love to be able to use the technology for that. So I am really excited to see government focus on this and just to make everything so much more efficient. I mean, if you get down to it, like think about like taxes and like the payment of taxes, like are the payment of tax refunds. How simple is that? I mean, it takes a lot of skill to be able to get that put into a government office, even though the technology is there. It just takes time, but it's really exciting to me to see the future of that.
What are you worried about? Like you're a very optimistic person.
Yeah.
You're very positive. That's I think why you and I get along. But what keeps you up at night? What are you worried about?
I do worry about the fact that sometimes we all get ahead of ourselves. Like there's a lot of shiny objects out there in the crypto and blockchain space. And I think that they're actually super useful because it demonstrates the flexibility of the technology. But sometimes too many people focus on the shiny objects and not on like the real tech and what's happening with the real tech. And I worry that as a result of that, maybe the technology takes another beating from the regulators or from the just governments, not just even domestically, but internationally, that we don't need to take. I also get worried that we don't actually understand the monetary policy implications on a global basis enough, and we don't spend enough time thinking about that. And sometimes we're like technology here, make it work. And we need to, I think, really, I've spent a lot of time with central bankers all over the world to understand what they care about. And then I've also commissioned studies with universities to say hey, can you help? In Nigeria, part of the reason why the Nigerian government, the SEC flipped the switch and said no more crypto, 4 years ago or 3.5 years ago, was because they were really concerned that was actually the crypto was fueling the rise against the government. And actually, we probably could have showed them that that's not what was happening if we used the tech stack to do that. But also it made them fearful of having any crypto within the country. All the ramifications of things we've seen happen in Nigeria result from that fear. We got to eliminate the fear and really focus on the facts and then the outcomes that they want to see for their internal constituencies. And so I get worried that we don't spend enough time there as an industry. But big picture, I'm super optimistic about what this tech can do.
Let's end on a positive note. You guys have done a lot of work with the UN.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of funds that have been dispersed across some of these technologies. Describe a little bit as what that work is and kind of what the technology is actually doing.
Yeah. So that is the bulk disbursement tool that I mentioned. I think it's called the Stellar Disbursement Tool or something that we're really
Very
good at,
creative,
creative at naming things.
Don't worry, whoever created Bitcoin named the network and the asset the same thing. At least you're better than that.
So the technology allows for aid organizations like the UN High Commissioner on Refugees. They used this to deliver aid into different countries. They've sent, I think, about $5 million worth of aid over the last couple of years, and they kept the wallet on the receive side very simple so that you can receive the value and then you can send it to your bank account or you can cash out at MoneyGram. No, nothing else in the wallet to do. Eventually, I'd love to see that grow. We can flip the switches back on for them to be able to do it. But why is this important? It makes it so that that text message that the refugee receives to say, hey, you have received aid from the UNHCR, download this wallet. They download the wallet. Their aid is in their hands in 2.5 minutes because they have to fill out the KYC. That is what this technology does. That is what we've been doing for the last 3 years. Not only is it efficiency and ease of use for the aid recipient and all of those things, it's also saves a ton of money. Mm-hmm. So when I think about USAID doing this, it saves a ton of money for them to be able to leverage this technology. Just in sending the $5 million, they were able to save $12 million in just internal efficiencies, not having to take cash and to put it in these countries and to have all the security around it. They could actually do it digitally and it made so much more sense. And they can now do it on a, they do it on a monthly basis to some folks, depending on the country and the work that they're doing. And they already have that contact and can do it so easily. So the efficiencies with using blockchain technology and especially all the tools that Stellar has built makes it so that it's really great. So it makes me really excited. That is I look at that and I don't look at it. It's a payment. Mm-hmm. That is what we have been focused on since Jed founded the Stellar Network, and 11 years ago. We've been focused on payments and asset issuance. And this is using both. It's using the payments, but it's using those assets that are the dollar-backed assets that are issued on the network. So it's exciting.
It seems to be working.
It's working super well. They love it. And I think that then in terms of the immutability of the blockchain and having that transparent way to show, no, this aid was actually sent. And they can demonstrate that to any of the folks that are giving them aid. So the US government can do the same thing with USAID. That is huge, right? That's the value of blockchain. Everybody talks about fraud and all those things happening. More fraud happening in the world outside the money in your pocket than it is on blockchain. So, yeah.
How do people help you? What is it? You need talent, you need partners, you need what?
Well, we always need talent. Talent is the most important thing. Keeping the quirkiness, the sophistication, and the passion for the work that we do at the SDF is really important. So we need talent. Partners we have lots of amazing partners that have done a tremendous amount of work to build up Stellar. I'll be honest and tell you that I think historically we haven't done the best at tooting our own horn, but others have done it for us. We're trying to get better at doing that ourselves. So yeah, both of those things are really important. And also just like give it a go, like take a look at the tech stack and take a look at what's happening. We need developers to really embrace it. We see a lot of that right now and it's amazing, but we can always use more.
Amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. We'll definitely do it again in the future.
Yeah. Thanks so much.